Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Manchester United have just lost 7-0 to Liverpool. There are many words to talk about: where it went wrong, why it went wrong, what this means for the future. One thing I want to say from the very off is that this cannot be, if you're a United fan, this cannot be one of those days at the office. One of those days at the office are where you lose 1 or 2-0 and you didn't play well. 7-0 is stunningly shit. It's not one of the days at the office. It's an absolute disgrace. And the reason it's stunning is because I don't think that should never happen. That should never happen. 7-0 is downing tools, completely losing self-respect for yourself, your teammates, your fans, your manager. It is absolutely shit. And even though I know, and you know, some of those players are capable of it, I didn't think that we were going to ever go back there again now that Ten Hag had done such a great job. But there's so much to digest in that. But what I want to do as well is just straight from the off say this in no way makes me doubt the manager and some of those players. I still think they're very, very good players. But picking the reason that happened and finding it and doing something about it, I think it's extraordinary. And one other thing I want to say right from the outset as well is if people are thinking, oh, I'd like a progressive owner. I don't mind if we keep hold of the debt. I'd like progressive ownership. It'd be nice to keep it in-house and, you know, have Sir Jim come in because he's a local lad and this, that and the other. The reason we need super wealth is because that club is still super shit in many areas. That result reflects really the worst of what Man United is. We still are infected with people who, when the going gets tough, they fuck off. They give up. And at 2-0, to not have the self-pride and intelligence to shut up shop, I couldn't believe it was 7-0 and Liverpool are running 4-on-3 because we're trying to attack. Idiots. Absolute idiots with no self-respect. They've completely and utterly destroyed what they've built over the last few weeks in the space of 90 minutes with shocking decisions and efforts. I can't put that down to one bad day at the office. It's Liverpool at Anfield. And you can't put it down to tiredness either, because it's Liverpool at Anfield. There are certain games where you've got to go out there and put the effort in and work hard. And look, if you get beat 2-0, and you work hard for half an hour to make sure that it stays at 2-0, that's still being a Man United player. They didn't want to work at 2-0. At 2-0, they knew the game was over and they didn't want to work hard. And that's why they got beat 7-0, because they showed a total lack of professional behaviour and respect for that shirt. And unfortunately, this is why you need rich owners, because if that happens at Man City or that happens at Newcastle, you better be sure 5 or 6 of those players that start today don't start again next season because they're gone. We need to bring the elite mentality into that football club. This is why the Glazers need to go, because the Glazers won't give a shit about that. They may stay, they may not, but they would never be bothered by that. They wanted to keep Solskjaer when we got beat 5-0 at Old Trafford. They don't understand what winning's all about. I blame the Glazers for where we are. I don't blame the Glazers for today, but I do look at the result today and go, we need them to fuck off, and we need to get in proper owners who want to be successful, who are obsessed with winning. Because, let's be honest, Darwin Núñez was a striker that Ten Hag wanted. More importantly, Gakpo was the player that Ten Hag prioritised as his number one player to bring in January. Why didn't we get Gakpo in January? Because there was no money left. Because Richard Arnold and John Murtagh spent £85 million on a £50 million player who looked a £10 million player today in Anthony. There was no money left in January because they shit the bed in August and overspent on a player that they should have bought in June for half the price. And then there was no money left in January, and now Gakpo's scoring 2 goals against us and looks a really good player. This club is not just the Glazers, it's the people who are employed by them. The incompetence comes back and bites us on the arse all the time. And when you look at today, it was quite symbolic that this is why we do need rich owners who care about winning. Because Gakpo scored 2 goals today and should have been wearing a Man United shirt if we had better owners and better director of football and better CEO. Instead, we've got Anthony, who before the game is talking about he's played loads of big games before, he knows what's needed, and then plays like he's never played a big game in his life, gets absolutely humiliated and doesn't even put any work in. Now, I like Anthony, but I can't defend that performance. It was absolutely abysmal. It's one of the worst performances I've seen in a Man United player, and I've watched Man United players a lot. Didn't want to track back, was at fault for the first goal, kept losing the ball, kept kicking out like some petulant little child. I tell you what, I'll back Anthony, I'll stick by Anthony, and I think some of the media representation of him is poor. But I won't do agendas. I won't stick by players blindly. And that performance by Anthony today was horrific. I don't know how he stayed on the pitch, and we'll go through the list of what Ten Hag got wrong, and I want to get into your comments as well. But that is an unforgivable performance. And I think the only thing that sort of gives me any hope is that we do get this rich owner in, so that if that happens again, players actually get booted out of the club. Because all that'll happen is those same players will be playing again in a couple of weeks, because Ten Hag doesn't really have any other options, does he? I haven't felt so embarrassed like this for a long time, so disappointed in the players, says UK Enterprise. Daniel Reevy, thank you very much for your super chat. This result needs a big reaction to give the fans confidence, says Div. An unbeaten run till the end of the season would be a good start. It just knocks everything down, doesn't it? The confidence and the belief. Horrible result, but we've been coming off an unbelievable set of results in March. Ten Hag is doing miracles. See, Carrymore, this is... Unfortunately, you're going to be the one that I jump down the throat on in a minute. They should be ashamed. No pride, no passion, and no fight. I thought these days had gone. I would make the whole team come out and face the press, says Andy Cheetham. Blaming owners yet again after we lose a game. You're an embarrassment, says Dylan John. Okay, mate, who are you? Like, who are you and what point are you making? Blaming the owners after a defeat like that. You're an embarrassment today, mate. Who owns Man United? The Glazers. Who employed Ed Woodward, Richard Arnold, John Murtagh to buy some of the shit that we've got in this team? Who pays? We've got the biggest wage bill in the country. We've got debts. What class of prat are you? Because you're way beyond turbo. At what point do you not correlate the Glazers owning Manchester United and the shit show today? Of course it's to do with the Glazers, you dickhead. 100%. Of course it is. And as for Carrymore saying that we've been on a good run, you can't blame Ten Hag. The players have done a great job. Mate, you've got to have a standard as a Manchester United player. There is a result where you go, we've been on a good run, it's disappointing, we dust ourselves off and we go again. 7-0 is not one of those results. 7-0 against anybody is not one of those results. 7-0 at Anfield against your biggest rival, 2 goals off the Premier League annihilation record. 8-9. And it could have been 8 because we're still bloody attacking corners, leaving 3 against 4. Nah, you don't sweep that under the carpet. You don't. We have to move on, and we have to, Ten Hag's got a big job on him, and I 100% back him. But there's losing, and there's that. I can't even get my head around it, because we had arguably our best back 5 on the pitch. Casemiro was on the pitch. Fred's been playing well. Rashford's been playing well. Bruno's been playing well. It's as unforgivable as it is shocking because of what actually happened. But to be honest with you, I actually think at 3-0, Ten Hag made a horrific error. Horrific error that cost us 4 goals. Bringing Scott McTominay on and putting him in a game like that was like throwing a rabbit into a bunch of lions. It was a tear-up because we completely capitulated in the midfield. Fred might not have been having a good game, but Fred we've always said this about Fred. He can have a bad hour, and then in the last half an hour, he'll be world class. Taking Fred off for McTominay, he was obviously not very happy with Fred, but taking Fred off for McTominay, however bad we were with Fred, that midfield just dissipated, completely disappeared. 3-0 to 7-0 in half an hour. Now, let's not forget, 1-0 to 3-0 in 5 minutes was disgusting, just after second half. But 3-0 to 7-0, I don't know. And what Luke Shaw's doing, by the way, who I thought Luke Shaw was very good in the first half. I mean, look at the 7th goal. Was it? I mean, I lose count. There's one of them where he kicks it against Firmino and he could have just kicked it out for a corner. All the discipline, everything they've been told, the accountability, the professionalism, it disappeared. Like the ability to just kick the ball out of play and reset. No, I'm just going to throw my foot out. It was just unbelievably unprofessional. And it was reminiscent of the very worst days of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And to go back there, I'm dazed. It was a combination of poor mentality, tiredness, and a lack of quality in the squad to bring in quality replacements, says Paul. It's a big test for Ten Hag now to help these players get their confidence back, says Ben. At the end of the day, this is a massive blip. Can't happen again if we want to compete, says Harvey. What's your thoughts on what Ten Hag will do after a result like that with the players, says Becca. Mate, you know what? There's a lot of truth in what a lot of people are saying. There are certain players in that team that you've got to pick up and rebuild. Martinez, De Gea, Varane, Luke Shaw, Casemiro, Rashford, Bruno. Those 7 players, you can't sell them, you can't boot them. They all played pretty shit today, but you've got to pick those players up and refocus them. They have been really good for us. Like they have been. Look at the Barcelona games. Look at some of the, you know, it's unforgivable, but they have to be forgiven. They have to be. The McTominays of this world, the Antonys of this world, you know, they're no less shit than the other players I've mentioned, but they've got big problems because, like McTominay, I've spoken about him. Antony, I've spoken about him. I don't blame them for the loss, but I don't know what you do with those types of players because you've got to do something. And, you know, Weghorst, unfortunately, we all know about Weghorst as well. Can I just say, we're going to do player ratings, links in the video description, but we all know about Weghorst. We all like Weghorst, and he really does try his best. But he ain't very good, is he? Let's be honest. At that level, in a game like that, where it's that intense, he isn't good enough. And you're almost down to 10 men. But look, I want to go through the things Ten Hag's done, but if I was to struggle and find one positive, and what I want to say as well is, and I was very wary of this in the game, and I've seen some Liverpool fans doing this all year. Oh, fucking get rid of Klopp. It's a disgrace. It's this and that. And I'm like, you're an embarrassment to your football club because Jurgen Klopp's one of the best managers in the world. Even I can say that after we've been beat 7-0. Liverpool are going through a transition and Liverpool will be back. We made Liverpool look the best they've looked all season, which is horrific. But Liverpool will be back. And I don't want to go back to those days of sack the manager, sell this player, this, that and the other, because that's not where we've been for the last few weeks and I'm not going to go down that road. But I don't think you can just sweep it under the carpet as, oh, you know, it's one of those days. It's not one of those days to get beat 7-0 by anybody, and it's certainly not one of those days to get beat 7-0 at Anfield. But if there is a positive, and there isn't, but if there is one thing that might help you sleep tonight, that could be a blessing in disguise, because it should sharpen the minds of the fans and the players and the manager that we've probably, in fact, we have been massively overachieving. If you look back at the Leicester game 2 weeks ago, they should have beat us in the first half. David De Gea made 2 world-class saves. They were the better team, and then we were good in the second half. West Ham in the first half on Wednesday, they were better than us, and they should have beat us, and we still won. We've been getting away with it. We've been starting second halves terribly. Leeds at Ellen Road, we won that game. We were shit for 15 minutes at the start of the second half. We have probably ridden a few losses, which we've turned into wins, where we've described genius. Oh, Ten Hag's a genius, you know, he can change it up and he wins. What happened today is a combination of he couldn't change it up, the players couldn't get up for it, they dropped their heads, and we got absolutely annihilated by a team that for one of the few times this season hit their groove. And we got our arses handed on a plate. In a sense, it's probably a blessing in disguise, because we've probably been covering up our deficiencies. We've probably been riding our luck too many times. I don't think we were ever going to lose 7-0 any other game this season. That is shocking, but there is a sense of this has been coming, and there is a sense of it's probably a blessing in disguise that we don't overhype this team. There's been talk of title races. That's gone in epic scale. There's been talk about, well, we'll be in the Champions League next year. We beat Barcelona. Let's bring on Real Madrid. They'd stuff the shit out of us. We are miles off winning the Premier League, and we are miles off winning the Champions League. And I think that reality bite should sharpen the minds. I'd love to know how Ten Hag's going to react to this. He's my manager. I want him to stay. I think he's done a great job. I don't think he deserves this. I think it's a horrible thing to have on the CV of a guy that we've described as a magician and a genius. To be beaten 7-0 at Anfield, there's nothing magic about that, and there's nothing intelligent about that. It's an absolute embarrassment. And he's got that on his CV. And I feel for him because he'll be much more angry than we are, even though he made mistakes. His options on the bench were not great. You know, he wants to bring Fred off and he brings McTominay on. You know, he absolutely needed to take Rashford off and he can't. You could tell he wasn't happy with Rashford today. He can't take him off. The squad isn't big enough. What Ten Hag needs now is, let's be blunt, he needs that Qatar ownership. He needs that sort of wealth. He does. The Sir Jim Ratcliffe ownership that keeps us in debt and, you know, progressive ownership, I don't see how that moves us forward. I think it could be a blessing in disguise because it will stay with him for a long time and he will never get carried away by beating Southampton next week again, because this will stay with him for a long time. When you get humiliated like that, it sticks with you. And his obsession over the summer and for the next few weeks will be, next year when we go to Anfield, I've got to find a way not to get humiliated like that. So sometimes the most heavy defeat can be a blessing in disguise because it can be the thing that motivates you. But there's still a lot of work to do at that football club. And probably a lot more than we thought. But I think the biggest problem, Zach says it's a disgrace what happened. What would you do to the players after this result if you were the manager? I've got to be honest, I think the worst thing you could do in the Betis game is start dropping Martinez and Varane for Maguire and Lindelof and playing Malacia instead of Shaw and putting Tom Heaton in goal and playing McTominay instead of Casemiro. As I said, our best team is still De Gea, Shaw, Varane, Martinez, probably Wan-Bissaka, Casemiro, maybe Sabitzer now, Bruno, Rashford, Martial, and, you know, it's up for grabs on the right wing now. But Martial's never fit. Bruno's not been playing in the middle, and in fact, we'll talk about that in a minute. We need to just make sure we get top four. We've won a trophy. If we can win another trophy, get to the summer and spend as much as we bloody well can and get rid of some of the shit. Because at no point did he think about bringing Harry Maguire on. That says a lot. At no point did he, think about taking Rashford off, even though he wasn't very good. I don't think he took Casemiro off. I want to look at his. My point is, that's not a pop at Harry Maguire, by the way. That's not a pop at Marcus Rashford or anybody. That's a pop at, the subs he made were weak because the bench was weak. He couldn't make the changes he wants to make, and I think you need to give him the squad depth that he needs to compete. The subs were this. So this is something I want. So we're going to do the player ratings. Links in the video description. But I want to just go. I did write down two things that I want to talk about before the player ratings. Why didn't we lose that game 2-0 is probably the biggest thing I wanted to say. Why did Manchester United not lose that game 2-0, and why did it go to 7-0? That is the bit for me. If we'd have lost 2-0, we'd still be moaning, but 7-0 takes a loss into areas you don't want to go. Why was that team not capable at 2-0 of going, right, the game's probably gone. Let's go compact. Let's go deep. And let's preserve that 2-0. For some reason, we kept going again and again and again, and we didn't have the legs, and we kept getting caught out again and again. I don't know why it went from 2-0 to 7-0. I'm at a complete and utter loss how it kept going from 3-0 to 4-0 to 5-0 to 6-0 to 7. That's unforgivable. We should have just shut up shop and gone, today's not our day. We'll live to fight another day. 2-0 against Liverpool is not the end of the world. That, for me, is the thing that's going to live with me for a while. Why could we not keep it down to 2? Liverpool would have been happy with 2-0. If we'd have stopped attacking and gone defensive, Klopp would have gone, they've shut up shop. They're not attacking anymore. We've got the win. Let's make sure we keep the win. But because we kept going at them, we kept going at them. They kept coming at us. And I don't know why we did that. The mentality of that team at 2-0, you could analyse that as a psychologist, and you'd learn a lot about bottlers. I don't know what they thought they were doing. As I said, it's 7-0. We have a cross that goes in. Everybody goes forward, and it's 4 against 3, and it could have been 8. I don't get what we were trying to do. And I don't think it was what Ten Hag was telling them to do. So that is a concern. It's hurtful, though. I almost think they did that on purpose. After good news about new owner, I hope Eric Ten Hag know what's next. I believe in my manager, says Fabrina. How can we go to Anfield with arguably a better team than we had at the Emirates and lose like this? It doesn't make sense, says Bradley. Bad game, feeling gutted and depressed, but we will bounce back, says Make India Great Again. And Eric's at the wheel, man. He's doing it. He's doing his thing. Man United are back, says Case. Look, you know, please do come and have a laugh and, you know, come and take the piss out of us. But the league table still says that we're way ahead of everybody else apart from Man City and Arsenal. We're still going to finish above Liverpool. We're still going to finish above Chelsea. We're still going to finish above Spurs and Newcastle, and we're still going to get top 4. We've still won a trophy. Liverpool won't win a trophy this year. 7-0 is a big result. If somebody said to me at the start of the season, you'll get beat 7-0 at Anfield, but you'll finish in the Champions League and you'll win a couple of trophies, I'd probably take it. Doesn't make it acceptable. So, look, we've been beat 7-0. My phone is full of people I know who are Liverpool fans who are going to be absolutely rinsing me. I've got to take it. I can't not what Liverpool did. I don't respect Liverpool, but I don't blame them at 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 to keep trying to score. Why should they give up? They got humiliated by Real Madrid a couple of weeks ago. They were never. That's the thing that annoys me. If those United players thought for any minute at 2-0, 3-0, let's just stop because they'll stop. They were never going to stop. It was so obvious if you gave them an inch, they were going to take a yard. Shaw was shocking, was at fault for 2 or 3 goals. He's not a big game player. Andreas, I'm really disappointed with Luke Shaw because I thought in the first half he was one of our best players. And the second half, I think Ten Hag will be fuming with him. If we don't get mega wealth owners in it ASAP, this team will fatigue and inevitably get the manager, says Mohammed. Do you think their legs finally gave out? Hopefully, look, Tony, look, I've played the game. Your legs don't give out against your biggest rival. Humiliation kicks in, adrenaline kicks in. I saw Bruno, Luke Shaw, Dalot, Martinez, Casemiro, Anthony. They were all kicking out. They're all petulant. You don't get tired against your biggest rival. They just lost self-respect. All we've got is the fact that no matter how many goals we conceded, we didn't drop more than 3 points, says SK. If we don't get mega, we've done that one. And also, Klopp's happy he can live off this game for the next couple of seasons, says SK. Look, I don't begrudge Liverpool that win. We handed them on a plate. We've got to look at ourselves. I want to go into the player ratings. Links in the video description. Mark every player out of 10, 6 being the average. Please do subscribe to the channel, by the way. And don't forget, we've got the fan forum coming up in the studio where you'll get a load more opinion and interaction as well. These player ratings aren't going to be very quick, aren't going to take me very long. Oh, one more thing I want to say as well. It would be remiss of me not to do it. Ten Hag's mistakes today. Right, I'll try and summarise this very, very quickly. Ten Hag made mistakes today. I back Ten Hag. He's my manager. I feel really bad for him. I think he's the right man for Manchester United, but that has to come on the manager. Of course it does. You know, you lose 7-0. You can't say the manager didn't get something wrong. He did. I think Anthony needed to come off at half-time. I won't be watching my watch-along back, but I did say at half-time I've defended him, but he's had a crap first half. He had a crap second half. So that was a massive mistake. Anthony should have come off. He wasn't working hard. His head wasn't in the game. He was dreadful. I felt that that's what I would have done at half-time. And I would have brought on either Garnacho or Sancho like he did. I'd have put Rashford on the left and put Bruno back at 10. That's the second thing. Bruno Fernandes on the wing doesn't work. It does not work. He is our best. He's our captain. He's got an unbelievable record as our captain. And he's wasted on the wing. Just because he can do it doesn't mean you should take him out of his best position. I think that's a mistake number 2. And those were mistakes that were made from the start. But in the first half, we were okay. Most of the mistakes were in the second half. The Anthony mistake was compounded. The Bruno mistake was compounded. Second half FC, we've started so many games badly at second half. We were 1-0 down at half time. We were 3-0 down after 5 minutes of the second half. We were still in the dressing room, and this keeps happening. And that's got to be on the manager. Why are the players walking out in body but not in mind in the second half? So that was a massive mistake. At 3-0, he took off Fred for McTominay at 3-0. It ended up being 7-0. That was an absolute disgrace. McTominay got booked very quickly as well. That was a big mistake. His other substitutions, I mean, Martinez for Malacia, I don't really understand that one at 77 minutes. And Casemiro for Sabitzer at 77 minutes. I mean, it's trying to figure this out, the goals. So we conceded 2 more goals after Martinez and Casemiro came off, I'd have kept them on. I mean, 5-0 is embarrassing, but 7-0 is even worse. It seems to me that every time we made the subs, we went and conceded 2 or 3 more goals. So his substitutions were wrong. But you know what? I'd be sympathetic to him there because the substitutions were wrong. The McTominay one was bad. Taking Martinez and Casemiro off is bad because I think Ten Hag's a really good manager, but I think today, in his anger, it overtook his composure, because I think what he did is at 3-0 he knew the game was on, and he made a point of taking Fred off for McTominay, but then the 3-0 became 7-0, and I think at 5-0 he made a point of taking Casemiro and Martinez off, but 5-0 became 7-0. And I think he was making subs because he was angry with those players and he wanted to make a point. But every time he made the subs, the team became worse. Like Fred came off for McTominay and the midfield became a lot worse and we conceded 4 more goals. Casemiro and Martinez came off and we conceded 2 more goals. Why? Because the team's better with Fred in it than it is with McTominay. Why? Because the defence is better with Casemiro and Martinez in it than it is without them. As bad as it is, it's better. I think we shipped probably 3 or 4 more goals because Ten Hag made angry substitutions that made us worse. I mean, you look at that team at the end of the game. It's Dalot, Varane, Shaw, Malacia, McTominay, Sabitzer. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And I think we probably conceded 2 or 3. I would be critical of Ten Hag on how many goals we conceded. We'd lost the game and the players lost us the game. But I think the subs he made cost us a few more goals. But I can be sympathetic about it because the bench ain't good enough. And he's got every right as a manager to pull people off who've not performed. But it made us work. Why are you going in on individual players on Twitter? Nobody played well, says RS. I didn't know I had gone on individual players. And I'll do what I want, mate. Thank you very much. Passing has been bad. We finally got punished, says Zag. And a bit unlucky on a couple of the goals, but we switched off too many times. I mean, some of the goals were like pinball wizard. It was a joke. Let's do the player ratings. David De Gea for me has let 7 goals in. It's got to be a 3. Yeah, he's let 7 goals in. I don't think he's at fault for any of them massively, but he's let 7 goals in. Dalot, again, I'd give him a 3 as well. I mean, look, I don't get the Dalot hate. There's a lot of people who don't like Dalot, but when you look at the game, hardly any of the goals are to do with the right back. And Wan-Bissaka may well be playing better than him, but it would still be 7-0. I thought Dalot was probably the best defender of everybody. Not that he played well, but apart from the first goal where he's pulled out of position because of Anthony, I can't directly put the blame on Dalot for anything. Varane's got to be a 3. I love these players, but just shockingly bad, and surprisingly bad. Rafael Varane's an elite player, and he got dragged down. Martinez, look, what I would say about Martinez is that he got put in his arse by Salah, and I'm sure they'll all be going, I told you he's not a good player. This ain't FIFA. This is not FIFA. He got skinned by Antonio last week. Defenders will get beat. They're not going to be flawless every week, but it wasn't good today. Luke Shaw's got to be a 2. The worst player in the back 4 by a long way. I don't know. Luke Shaw was probably, like I said, in the first half, one of our best players. And in the second half, that's probably the worst 45 minutes of his Man United career. There was times where he could have kicked the ball out and he just petulantly kicks it against the player and then they score. It was like, you know what? It was like Luke Shaw played the first half and then in the second half, somebody put on a Luke Shaw suit and went and played at left back. It was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe his performance. It was just so out of character. Casemiro, probably a 3. Yeah, I mean, yeah, looked like he was carrying an injury in the first half. The second half was dreadful. Fred, I'd give Fred a 3.5. I didn't see the bad performance from Fred like others did. And I certainly would have kept him on because the thing about Fred is he'll never stop running. But yeah, it wasn't good. Weghorst, 2. Yeah, I mean, that was the game where I think we realised that Weghorst isn't that good. He'll always run around, but he just isn't that good. Anthony, I hate to say it, was a 1. I like Anthony. I'm not individualising it. I think he put a lot of pressure on himself by gobbing off before the game, saying he's played a lot of big games. I don't think he's ever played a Liverpool Man United game, and I think it was very, very clear. The one thing that makes Anthony the worst player on the pitch for me, and I'll back Anthony. I will back Anthony like I did at half-time against West Ham. I think there's a good player there. I really, really do. I think he's got a lot to learn, though. And he's going to be open season on Anthony, and I will back him and I will stick up for him. People seem to forget that bias is when you ignore bad results and stick by them, or ignore good results from players because you don't like them. I will be fair. I've done it before with Bruno. I've done it with Rashford, two of my favourite players. Luke Shaw today, one of my favourite players. Varane, Martinez, Casemiro. If you play crap in a United shirt, you have to call it out. It doesn't mean I don't like the player. I like Anthony. He's got a lot to learn. The first thing he needs to learn is wind your neck in and put a shift in and work hard in a United shirt. And he didn't do any of those things today. And that is why he will get the lowest rating from me, because he was petulant. He didn't help his fullback out. He lost the ball. He holds on to the ball for too long and didn't put a work rate in. There was one goal where he gave the ball away. Everyone's running back. He doesn't run back. I think it was the fourth goal. Not acceptable. You know, I don't want to go back where we did a year ago, but there is one thing you should do in a United shirt, and that's put a shift in. And you never, never, never play Liverpool at Anfield and play like that. Never. Bruno, look, Bruno wasn't very good. I'd probably give him a 2. Bruno was not very good. Most of it was because he was being played out of position, but he wasn't very good. Really wasn't very good. Rashford, same, 2. You know, probably on a different day might have scored a couple of goals. He was in the graveyard shift a lot, I'll say that. But, you know, there's a responsibility. And the worrying thing about Rashford today is I saw him a few times and the leadership was not there. You know, they cut to him a few times and it was just this face that we saw last year. And I saw a few of those. I saw Bruno's face like that. I saw Rashford's face like that. Luke Shaw's face like that. And it terrified me because I thought, oh my God, they've literally, their faces look the same as they did last year when we were getting smashed. It's almost like this shock. And I'm like, where's the fire? You know, lift each other up. You've been brilliant at it when you're winning, but real football teams are about when you're losing. Come on, where is it? And it just disappeared today. McTominay was a 1. He was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. To come on at 3-0 and then lose 7-0. I mean, yeah, just wasn't very good. And as soon as he gets a yellow card, he's redundant, isn't he? Because that's what he's all about, physicality. Garnacho, barely noticed him. Horrible game for him to be in. Didn't really learn a lot about him, so I'd probably give him a 3. Malacia, I didn't even notice, so 3. Sabitzer the same, and Alanga the same. And Ten Hag today, look, he made a lot of mistakes. The Weghorst at number 10, and not taking Anthony off at half-time. Bruno on the left. The angry substitutions that just kept leading to goals. It was his worst game as a Manchester United manager, and I think we gave him a 3 against Brentford, so I'll probably give him a 2 today, which is what most of you have done. Man of the match? Shite. I mean, there shouldn't be a man of the match. I'd probably give it to De Gea based on the fact that I don't think he could have stopped any of the goals, but I don't know. Yeah, 19%. I mean, it's no award. That's no award. Trust me. It's not a reward. It's not an award at all. It's absolutely abysmal, as you know. But look, we've got the fan forum coming up for you next on the show, on the channel. But I just want to take a couple of minutes to say that, you know, a responsible answer is to say that these things shouldn't happen, but it's a game of football. We have won a trophy. We will be in the Champions League. I think somebody put it perfectly when they said we only dropped 3 points. Doesn't matter how many goals they score, we only drop 3 points. We've not dropped 30 points. We're not getting relegated. I would say, for me, I want us to get bought ASAP. I want it to be wealthy owners. I don't want some progressive keep the debt bullshit. We need to clear out that squad in the summer. We need to bring 4 or 5 players in, and we need to build on the positives of this season so the negatives of this season don't happen again. But It's a huge, huge, huge blow, and it's a very, very shocking performance from players that I didn't think were capable of it, and that will take a bit of time. Fortunately, Betis at home on Thursday is the perfect antidote. You've then got Southampton at home. It'll be very interesting over the next few days what Ten Hag does. I think his substitutions that were angry today showed that you can't just change these players. You know, if you're going to drop Casemiro because he didn't play well for McTominay, you're going to get beat. If you're going to drop Martinez and Varane because they let 7 goals in for Lindelof and Maguire, you're going to get beat. Somehow, he's got to pick up the likes of De Gea, Luke Shaw, Varane, Martinez, Casemiro, Bruno, Rashford. Those 7 players are the core of his team. For some reason, they're the 7 I'd talk to first. Those 7 players, I'd say, what the fuck's going on? You are my key players. You've made this season what it is. And then why has that happened? Why has that happened? Because he can't afford to drop any of those 7. He needs them. And needs another 4 players to go with them. But it'll be a very interesting week for Manchester United because there's no doubting that those 7 players I've mentioned are part of what happened and what went wrong. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to go over onto the fan forum in the studio now. There's a few people there who are not very happy, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy listening to their opinions as much as you have done mine as well. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you over on the fan forum now for what has been a disgraceful day for Manchester United.